Welcome to the Shift Your Story, Change Your Life podcast. I'm Allie Rose, certified clinical hypnotherapist and subconscious success coach. I help my clients stop self-sabotage and feel safe to create more wealth, worth, and wellness from within. If you find yourself stuck repeating the same unhelpful patterns in your life, health, business, or relationships, even after all the mindset work, this podcast is for you. Each week, you'll hear deep dives into the hidden beliefs shaping your life and live hypno coaching sessions where someone shifts a block in real time. Because willpower isn't the problem, your subconscious story is. And when you shift it at the root, everything else begins to change. So let's dive in. Hello. Welcome back to the Shift Your Story, Change Your Life podcast. Today, we are going to be continuing our series on the subconscious blocks that hold high achievers back in business. And we're going to be focusing on the fear of success, just the fear of actually getting what you say you want. But even if you're not in business, I promise you that you will be able to gain a lot from these conversations because the patterns run deep and they show up everywhere in money, relationships, health, self-worth, all of the places. But before we dive in, Safiya, welcome back. How are you feeling about diving into this topic?
I'm looking forward to it. Really looking forward to it, especially obviously we discussed fear of failure before. And so I'm interested to sort of tie some of that back as well. So should be good.
Good. Yeah. So where do we want to start? I know you usually like to start with definitions. So
I love a definition. So let's start with a definition. What does fear of success actually mean?
Yeah. And I know those definitions are important to you as a writer.
But I like the definition because then people may start to think, oh, actually, I didn't realize it, but I have a fear of success. So I think it's good to have that definition so people can relate to the topic.
Right. Yeah. So, and obviously my definitions of things or the way that I define things are not the be all and end all.
Absolutely.
It's just the way that I view them from the work that I've done with people. Yeah. So I would say that the fear of success is when the thing that you say that you want, whether that's money or recognition or love or to get healthy, actually feels threatening to your subconscious in some way. And so it's not that you don't want success consciously, because if I were to ask anyone, they'd most likely say that they want to succeed at whatever goal they're trying to achieve. But it's that part of you associates success with danger, whether that's being judged or being alone or burning out or being taken advantage of. Even as you move forward toward the thing that you say that you want, something is kind of quietly pulling you back away from it. Because in some ways, fear of success can threaten your belonging. Like if no one else in your family or in your community has ever started a business or something like that, it can threaten belonging or identity or your nervous system. So your brain will block it every time, even if you don't realize that it's happening.
Yeah. So I'd love to talk a little bit about the difference between fear of success and fear of failure, because I feel like they're closely tied.
Right.
But what would be the difference between fear of success and fear of failure?
I said this last time, but fear of failure usually sounds like, what if I try and it doesn't work? What will that mean about me? While fear of success sounds more like, what if I try and it does work? And then I lose myself, I lose everything, I lose a part of me, or I can't hold this or sustain this, or it majorly changes something about who I am in my life. So with fear of failure, we fear embarrassment or rejection, but with fear of success, what happens after the win? What comes with that? Is it more pressure, higher expectations, losing people we love? And you can fear failing and still be afraid of what will happen if you succeed. They're like two sides of the same coin because they're both rooted in protection.
I'm really reminded of this, not just when I wrote my book, but whenever I've worked with anyone who was writing their book. Sometimes people are like, what if no one reads it? Or what if everyone reads it? So it's like two sides of the same coin, right? Because you're worried that no one's going to read it, but you're also worried like people are going to read it and then they're going to be upset and then they're going to want their money or different things
Right.
that follow on from that.
Right. Absolutely. I see that a lot in the online space. I actually just saw this in a group the other day where someone, again, it relates to the what I had shared in the fear of failure episode, where someone literally in a group posted that they had all of the modules created and everything created, but
Mhm.
they could not actually bring themselves to share about it. And that was because so people were asking questions in the comments. And she was saying that it was actually about what if people do actually buy. That was what more so what she was afraid of than failing.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, okay. Yeah, so they can be I feel like they can almost be confused for one another sometimes as well. So, you talked about the subconscious element of it and success kind of feeling fearful. Could be fear of change in a relationship or a change in how losing a part of yourself, as you said. But, for most people, this is also something that they really want,
Right.
right? So what do you find happens as a result of having those sort of conflicting things going on?
There's often that push-pull because somewhere along the way, we are individuals, but we live within a system. We live
Mhm,
within family systems, we live within cultural systems. And so while individually we may have hopes and dreams and desires and wishes for our life, somewhere along the way, we've been taught that having those things might cost us something, something that we
mm,
value more, like love, freedom, safety. So, for example, I think it's seeing their parents succeed meant that their parent became more absent in their lives, spent more time
mhm,
away from the family, started to care more about work, or being visible meant that they were bullied. So, like, they maybe were the star student and the teacher praised them and applauded them, but then that meant that they were bullied,
yeah,
or receiving meant that someone else got less in their life. A big one that I hear from a lot of people is that they heard a parent make a negative comment about rich people or wealthy people and their success, and then they felt like if they became one of those people, that they'd
mhm,
lose that love or belonging. So it's a
yeah,
push-pull, right? It's a conscious and subconscious push-pull because even though consciously they want the success, their
mhm,
subconscious learned we were talking about in past episodes can just learn through not just someone telling them outright, but through what they're picking up on in their environment that success brings pain or loss or disconnection in some way.
mhm. Yeah, yeah, I can see that. So what would be some signs then that a person is feeling that conflict or, I guess it might because we talked a few episodes ago about sabotage.
Right.
About self-sabotage. So is this something that can show up a bit like self-sabotage? Like, what are some signs of someone who may be experiencing that fear of success?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it shows up as pulling back right after a win or perfectionism, procrastination. It's the burnout, or what I call sometimes is the convenient chaos that's getting sick right before something big. Or
Mhm,
creating drama to distract from the momentum that they are focusing on little things that don't matter, like magnifying them because they don't want to actually achieve the thing that they're saying that they want to achieve. And
mhm,
again, it's self-protective. So the moment that success feels like it threatens their identity or relationships, their subconscious will find reasons to slow down or hide or self-destruct in some way that someone looking at it is like, "What's going on? This doesn't make sense," but it makes complete sense when you look at it from a subconscious level.
yeah, and I'm thinking about how sometimes because it is just drama that shows up or whatever the case may be, it is like people almost don't realize that that's what's happening. Like, you may almost only see it as a pattern because you realize this is the third thing I've created that I haven't launched, or this is the fourth thing I've created, and I've been sick before I launched it, and then the moment passed, or whatever the case may be. So I think it's those patterns as well that you can kind of see in the rearview mirror. But I think when it's happening, it can be really hard to know what's happening.
Absolutely, and people are probably sick of hearing me say this, but it really comes down to the awareness. It comes down
Mm,
to noticing when the pattern and it can also be helpful to have other people in your life, like a coach or a therapist or even a trusted friend who can lovingly be like, so I'm noticing X, Y, and Z in your life. What's that about?"
Yeah. Okay. Now, one of the things you mentioned earlier was the nervous system and safety in the nervous system. So, how does that play into fear of success?
I mean, pretty much all of the things that we're going to talk about, it
Hmm.
comes down to nervous system safety. Your subconscious job is to protect you. It's not actually to help you hit goals. It is to protect you, to keep you safe, to keep you alive. So, if somewhere along the way you've wired in the belief that success equals abandonment or pressure or being resented, your nervous system will register success as a threat. And so, even if you consciously want to grow your business or find love or whatever it is that you're going after, your subconscious will absolutely slow you down, stop you, hide you, because it will make it feel like success is betraying or success is leading you toward danger or a threat.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And I guess that's something as you said, it happens subconsciously. So you're not necessarily aware of what's happening, but it's just kind of running the show in the background. The other thing that you mentioned was the change in identity, that someone may be afraid of that success because of that change in identity. Could you talk a bit more about that?
If someone's identity, because we all take on roles in our life. And so if someone's role is, let's say, the underdog or the caretaker, or you're the invisible one, you keep the peace, that kind of thing. So you don't consciously say to yourself, I am the caretaker of the family, but you have in many ways taken on that role. Then you have that identity, and we typically operate out of our identity. And so then when you want to do something that's outside of that identity, that really can feel, again, it can feel threatening to your nervous system, because that dysregulates the whole homeostasis of the family system or
Mm.
whatever system it is that you're in. I'm thinking about even like a work system. If you are the person in a work system that typically does X, Y, or Z, and then all of a sudden you get this opportunity that might make you more money or give you more status, but that means that you're going to be taken away from that identity, that can be seen as a threat to your nervous system. So typically we'll do something to down regulate so that we don't upset the system that we're a part of.
Okay. Yeah. So I can see that. Do you have any examples? Do you have any personal examples or client examples of how fear of success was showing up for someone?
Yeah, I mean, I have a ton, because often, like I said, in that's what people are coming to me. They want. They want success in some area of their life, right?
Mhm.
Whether it is their business, whether that is in finding love, or maybe it's getting healthy or losing weight. So a client example that comes to my mind is a client who said that she couldn't seem to hit her next income level. So every time she got close, something happened. There was, we just started out with noticing there were the pattern. So there were unexpected bills, there was burnout, there was family drama that she needed to attend to instead of tending to the things that she actually needed to tend to. And so in one of our sessions, what we discovered was that she had a subconscious belief that if she made more money than her partner, that he would feel emasculated and leave her.
Mm.
Now, obviously, on a conscious level, she knew that that wasn't the case. But because of the dynamic that she had seen in her parents' relationship, she had wired that belief in. And so consciously, she wanted to grow, but subconsciously, she was protecting that relationship. And so once we address that root and, you start to create a new internal story, right? One where her success could actually enhance their connection and not threaten it, then everything, shifted within her business. And within months, she surpassed her old income ceiling without sabotaging it. So,
Mm.
because that safety, that internal safety, that internal story, that is really what makes the success sustainable for the long term, rather than the highs and the lows, the starts and the stops, right?
Okay. So it sounds like it's important for that longevity as well. Otherwise, it can just become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because if you have those highs and those lows, then if what you're afraid of, for argument's sake, if you're afraid that you have success and you can't hold it,
Hmm.
and then you have those highs and those lows, that may indicate to you, oh, look, exactly what you thought would happen, as opposed to actually that may just be a seasonal pattern in your business or whatever the case may be. So it's that, but then that'll just reinforce that fear of success.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. And as I was sharing her story, I was thinking about one of the ways that you can draw more awareness to something is by looking at, has this cycle repeated? In thinking about where hers came from, was seeing a similar dynamic play out with her parents. And so I think that that's another way that we can have awareness around certain patterns, is looking at, what are the patterns in my parents' lives or in my siblings' lives? Are there similar patterns that I'm seeing play out in other people who I grew up with in their life? Because that's where, going back to the generational things that we've talked about,
That's
that's
actually what I
where,
was thinking about.
right, that's where a lot of this can be generational.
Mhm. I was almost just thinking to myself, so many of the things that we have spoken to, we talked about that generational patterning, and this is one of the ways that it can show up. I guess this is one of the ways that you can see it show up in your life, is that fear of success, especially if you feel like you've seen certain patterns or sense those patterns playing out in sort of your parents' generation and that type of thing. I'm curious then, you talk a lot about noticing and a lot about awareness. What might be some ways for a person to notice that they may have this fear of success? Because we talked about definition, it was like, what are you afraid of? You're afraid of what might happen if you actually succeed. But I think it can be hard sometimes for people to notice that in themselves.
So, noticing requires slowing down, which is something that a lot of us are not actually good at, which is slowing down and taking a look at, I mean, here it comes again, journaling a lot. I'm a huge fan of journaling. I have stacks upon stacks of journals. And so, one of the reasons why I love journaling is that it can really help you as you reflect, as you go back through things, you can start to see certain patterns in things. Again, I
Mhm,
think noticing can be just taking time to slow down in your body as you start to work on or move toward something that you want, is like, how am I feeling in my body right now? Am I feeling
mhm,
some anxiety coming up, or am I noticing that I'm extra distracted and I'm finding anything else to do except for the thing that I said that I was going to do? And again, it goes back to having somebody in your life, a friend, a partner, a therapist, someone else who you're being transparent about what you want. And so then when you're not getting what you want, they can reflect back to you lovingly. Hey, I'm noticing this. This is what I always say to people is, I'm just curious. I could be totally wrong, but this is what I'm noticing. Are you noticing this as well?
okay. So it's good to have someone in your life that can reflect that back to you in terms of noticing. Do you find that this is more common in high achievers? Obviously, we're talking about high achievers in business, but I'm curious if you think it's something that would be more impactful on a high achiever.
Yeah, I think that that's why it goes unnoticed. So we talked about noticing. And so high achievers can look like they're being successful because
Mm,
constantly going, going, going. But they often operate from that fear of not being enough. So they push and push and push,
mm,
but they don't receive because they're not slowing down enough to notice the patterns. They're praised for overworking, overgiving, overfunctioning, which then masks that internal conflict. Because if everybody is giving you praise for overgiving, overfunctioning, overworking, then it's hard to slow down and notice that internal conflict.
mhm. Um, do you think it matters if it's fear of success or fear of failure? I know we've just differentiated it, but I'm curious from the perspective of, obviously you work with clients who are high achievers in business who may be having some of these fears. Does it matter? Does it matter if it's a fear of success or failure? Does that matter in terms of moving forward with that person?
Oh, the only reason it really matters is sometimes I think having a name for something can help. And
Mhm,
it's kind of like, whenever you get a diagnosis for something, that can help you determine, okay, what are the coping strategies or what are other things that I can do to help manage this? Yeah, I think sometimes just being able to name it can help people feel like, that's what it is. Okay. I have a better understanding of where that came from.
Yeah. And also, I think fear of failure feels quite normal in the sense that you feel like, isn't everyone afraid of failure? But I think fear of success feels like maybe a bit harder to spot because if it's something you want
Mhm.
and you'd be thinking, well, of course I want it. Why would I be afraid of something that I want? So I can see also how it may be more likely to go unnoticed than fear of failure.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that there are those oddballs in the world who actually don't fear failure. I would say I'm maybe one of those people because I really do just view failure as feedback for me about, you know, I failed at a lot of things. And I just
Mhm.
think that is an opportunity for me to look at why something didn't work rather than I'm a terrible person who should never do anything ever again. Because if that were the
Mhm.
case, then I would not still be an entrepreneur. I would be working a steady 9 to 5 job where I could just check off boxes. But yeah, random aside.
Oh, well, no, and that's fair enough, and I think it's good to realize that as well because I think that's just a part of that self-knowledge, isn't it? So it's just a part of that observation of yourself to be like,
Right.
"Well, this is what I may be afraid of."
Right. And as we're talking about it, I think that I'm saying, I don't have a huge fear of failure. I have failed at a lot of things in my life, or quote unquote failed, because I don't even know that failure is actually a real thing. But I actually think that the fear of success has been a bigger challenge for me. And I think that a lot of that does come from how I grew up. I grew up in a very blue collar family, working class. And so I have had to look at more and more how there are these things that start to be different than the family that you grew up in. And I've had to look at how is that impacting how far I'm willing to go? Because is there a fear in me that I'm going to lose connection with my roots? I'm going to lose connection with my family in some way if I become too successful.
Yeah, and I'm hearing that, and I'm reminded of people who are maybe the first, right? You may be the first person in your family to go to college or to get some type of further qualification or to start a business, to do that type of thing. And so that in and of itself, I can see how you'd have those competing fears within you between like this thing that you want so much and the fear of getting it, fear of getting everything you want. So I
Right.
could definitely see that. If someone out there is listening to this and they feel like they can starting to see themselves in some of the stories that we're telling, or even just noticing that about themselves, what is something that you'd like them to know?
If they're noticing or if they resonated with anything that we've shared today or that I've shared like about my life personally, it doesn't mean that you don't want it. It just means that your body and your brain, they haven't caught up with where you are in your life. They are still running on old stories. And so until you rewrite that story, you're going to keep hitting those invisible walls. So that first step is always awareness, taking a look at or noticing where you're shrinking or hiding or hesitating. And instead of trying to push through, which is really easy for high achievers and perfectionists to do, just ask yourself a question. I love questions. What
Mm,
am I afraid that being successful in this area will do to me? And that awareness alone is really powerful. It shows up in so many ways. We've been talking a lot about business, but I can think about with people who have maybe been overweight all of their life in some regard. And there's a connection that happens around food. And there's a connection that happens, especially I see people who are in partnerships and they're both overweight. And so then one person starts losing weight and pursuing particular goal around health. It might not even be around losing weight, but it's around health. And so there can be a fear around losing connection over a habit or pattern of behavior that that has connected you to someone that you deeply love. And so there can be a fear of actually succeeding in that goal because that means you'll lose connection. So really looking at where am I shrinking? Where am I hiding? Where am I hesitating? What am I afraid that achieving success in this area will mean for me? And then curiosity and then compassion for this part of you that is trying to keep you safe or trying to
mhm.
keep you connected.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. No, I like that.
The only other thing I would say is I think community really helps with this. So when we feel safe with others, so this is why I think joining an accountability group, whether that's in your business or whether that's around getting healthier, when we see other people who have had success in that area that we want, they haven't been completely exiled or become different, then success stops feeling like it's a threat because you're able to see that other people have this and they've maintained connection or they've maintained humility or whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. My sister and I talk about this a lot, and this idea of it. I don't like the saying, but I understand it in the sense that they say, like, you are the sum of the people that you spend your time with. And I think about it from that perspective. If you spend your time with people who are achieving those things, and as you say, you think actually their relationship has gotten better or whatever. What I think it allows you to do is question the narrative that you have, and I sometimes that's even a better question for that narrative than the ones that you ask yourself, because now you're starting to collect evidence as well. Like, okay, if that if this isn't true, if it's not true that every single time anybody gets what they want, this is the outcome, then what else might not be true? Or how else can I look at this differently? And I think that can then really help you to start to rewrite that story.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. It's really powerful. Like you said, to start to collect that evidence, especially if you haven't ever had that evidence in your life before, it could be helpful to start to collect that so that it kind of balances the scales out a little bit. Right.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, I look forward to discussing future topics. I'm loving this series. So
Yeah. Wonderful. So before we go, if you saw yourself in this episode, I want to invite you to head to theallyrose.co or click the link in the show notes to take the quiz and discover your dominant subconscious business block. You will also get a blueprint that will walk you step by step through the process to begin shifting it. And if the fear of success has been holding you back, I promise you that there is a safer, more powerful way forward. I hope that this episode was helpful. Thank you so much for joining us, and we're sending you so much love and gratitude. Until next time. Bye.
bye.
Thank you so much for joining us today for this episode of the Shift Your Story, Change Your Life podcast. If today's conversation sparked something in you, I'd love to hear about it. Feel free to send me a message on social media. I'm at the Allie Rose on both Facebook and Instagram. And if you want to be coached on a future episode or explore what it would look like to work with me one-on-one, head over to shiftyourstorypodcast.com. And if you never want to miss an episode, make sure to subscribe and leave a rating and review. It helps more people find this work. Until next time, keep shifting, keep growing, and most importantly, I want you to remember that your story isn't set in stone. You always have the power to shift it.